you should be curious. Curiosity is that's actually part of my MTP, right? Massive Drive. I want people to, aside from imagining, to really be curious on what he or she can be, explore, and then at the same time, if because if you don't, if you're not curious, and if you're like, okay, I cannot do that, if you keep on telling, oh, I cannot do that, and then that's it. No matter what you do, at the moment you say I can't, and then that's your reality. When my son tells me, mommy, it's hard for me, I think I cannot do that. Don't say that. Okay. Never say that you cannot do that. You could always try. It's difficult at first. It's difficult. Then you put yourself out there on that edge and then just try. Then if it doesn't work, then it's okay. Go to another one, then explore. So curiosity is important. So if you're not curious and you're very cynical, that's a roadblock.
How many of us are searching for our purpose in life? Some of us have found it, some of us are still searching, but there are some of us who have a massive transformative purpose. And that is how we are starting season 16 here at the Leader's Edge. We have invited an outstanding guest. Her name is Connie Germono, and she has a massive transformative purpose to co create mindful, curious, compassionate, and courageous human beings. She has a lot of experience, 25, more or less about like me. And she has experience both in training and in corporate, also like me. But Connie, can you tell us a little more about your experiences?
All right. Thanks, Paul. Well, that's more than almost 50 years of experience, right? But then, just like to introduce myself, first and foremost, I'm a mother, right? And I'm a trainer, and I create and design learning experiences. So that's how I like to call what I do, right? So, you know, um, for me, as I mentioned, I'd like to discuss about personal mastery, or really getting into what is really your purpose. Way back in 2018, I created this like mathematical equation, like legacy is equals to is the function of your purpose and values, right? So
Ah,
if we want to leave a good legacy, right, then you have to come up with a good purpose, and at the same time be firm of who you are as a person, then really find out what are your values. So the purpose and the values should come together, then you come up with a legacy. And that, I think, when I look at it, is where my massive transformative purpose came in, which is really, I love I love training. I love sharing, like, and creating those learning experiences. So that's why I created that MTP. But my MTP came from, I took a course. It's called EXO, Exponential. Right? It's a coach. I took a certification, and then all of us were asked to come up with, what's your MTP? It was not easy for me to come up, okay, this is my MTP. I have to really sit down and reflect and really what it is I would want to do, right? So, what would be my massive purpose in this world, right? So, basically, that's it.
I really appreciate the way you started with "I'm a mother." That's what you said first.
Yes.
So it's telling me where your values are. Okay, so so it's more like, yeah, the idea of being a mother and the values that a mother usually represents will always be present.
Yeah.
Uh, so your journey started in 2018, and you had a class and some guidance.
Yeah.
But what advice do you have for somebody who doesn't have that opportunity?
Well,
Okay, I'll just share a quick example. Let's say it's the lockdown
sure.
and you're stuck and you're wondering, oh, everybody's saying you're supposed to find your why and purpose.
And,
What do you do now?
what is that's true, right? For me, the purpose doesn't really come in. Okay, this is my purpose, right? But let me just start when I was a when I was a child. When I was a kid, I love to imagine. There's a poster inside my room. They're like, I don't like posters of actors or bands. I love posters of forest or
Oh,
landscapes, right? So I put that on the walls, and then I imagine I'm inside that particular like scenery, like inside the forest, and then I'll go wander inside the forest. So that's what I do in my pastime when I was a kid. Fast forward, my father. Um, he's supposed to attend a training called Silva Method, but he doesn't. But he doesn't want to go there. Then he said, "Okay, Connie, why don't you go to this training? I think this will be good
oh.
for you." Then I was like, "Oh, okay, no problem." I was in college then, and then have you heard of Silva Method?
No, I haven't. I was going to ask
Okay,
you. Tell me more about that.
okay. Our trainer during that time was Judy Kua, and it's about really making use of your mental facilities, right? Imagination and using your it's like the book on secrets, right? Imagine it, claim it, right? So there are different techniques on how to do that. And then I was like, okay, this is what I was doing when I was a kid. We have different exercises on meditation, keeping yourself yeah, just reaching out to yourself, right? So you close your eyes, imagine this, blah 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 blah, and then it's actually after that I realized, okay, this is something that I can do. In college, I joined theater. But
Oh,
then my
nice.
my father doesn't want me to. When he realized that I'm going home late because of the practices, then he told me, okay, you choose. Either you go theater, do you what you love, or you continue your studies. And then of course, there was an ultimatum. I will not fund your studies. You're up to you're on your own, right? And then okay, then I said, okay, sige, let's stop the theater. But then I came into this organization. It's called the National Federation of Student Councils, but I'm not part of the council. I'm part of the COMELEC. But then they needed someone who could create training programs
Oh,
for the leaders, for the council members. And I was a psychology graduate, and I fell in love with the book of I forgot her name, Carmelita. She has a book on group process and group dynamics. It's a pink book, right? And when I read that book, I fell in love with that book, and then I said, okay, this is something that I'd like to do. And then every time I create like learning experiences, this is during college, right? I imagine first. I use that like facility of imagining how would this work out, and how would I like people to learn, because in learning you cannot just tell, okay, this is what you'll do, blah blah blah. You'll bore people. They have to experience
yep.
it. So then you create that experience. Then you have to really imagine how this will work out, right? And then I actually started there. So looking
Okay.
back, it's actually connected, right? So I started in college creating those learning experiences. But for me, it was just like, or an extracurricular or something that I'd like to do, you know. And yeah, and then actually when I started working, the training is not part of my work. It was like
Mm.
my first work was I was an HR assistant, and then I resigned after 6 months because I
Wow.
felt like, you know, I said, okay, this is like a routinary. This is something I don't like to do. So, and then I get into project based work. Like, okay, there's a
Mm.
project in Bohol. Okay, I go there. There's a project in Pangasinan. Then I go there. I like adventure. I like to go. out there and explore. And then one day I said, okay, this I should stop. I got frustrated in my last project stint. It was
Mhm.
during election. I volunteered as a political officer in one of the
Mhm.
campaigns,
Oh,
and I was like, okay, it was very tiring and it was very exhausting and disappointing at the same time. I was disappointed. Okay, when I realized, okay, this is how it all works, pala. So then I said, okay, probably I should go back to corporate. Then it was a good thing that I found a good boss and a mentor that I stayed in this company
nice.
for 22 years. And this is
Okay.
actually, I started as an executive assistant to the vice president, and then so on and so forth. Then I was promoted to corporate affairs, to HR. Then finally, management has decided, okay, let's send Connie to a Seven Habits certification.
Mhm.
Then I became a Seven Habits facilitator. Then, my experience in college and me being a facilitator of Seven Habits, like, okay, this is coming together. And it's like, oh, this is something that I'd like to do. Fast forward 2014, I handled the training institution of our group, and I became a part of, really, I'm doing training. And
Mhm.
now I'm here,
Okay.
a trainer, a
Excellent.
facilitator.
Connie, why I find your story fascinating. Let's talk about two things first. Let's talk about imagination. Well, when I talk about this, when I'm facilitating a course, it usually involves a vision board or something about visioning.
Yeah.
And I tell them, look, for me, this is something that we all have as humans. Why? Because you did it as a kid.
Mhm.
You did it naturally. It's not something you have to reinvent. You're already doing it as a kid.
True.
I said, and I talked to the ladies in the room. I said, how many of you here played Chinese garter? Most of them raised their hand. And then I say, I can assure you, before you did the actual motion, you could see yourself doing it. You could see yourself running. And then I said, yeah, exactly. So you did it as a kid. Why do it now as a as a grown up? But the other thing that I find amazing with your story, it seems to me that you're an accidental facilitator. Because it started with your dad saying, "Oh, I don't want to go here. You do it." Okay.
It would look like, yeah, it would look like. But I think the
But
universe is like
uh,
putting me there, right?
which brings me to my second point. During the pandemic, I was thinking about this whole why business, finding your purpose. And I came to the conclusion that your why usually finds you. You don't find it, it finds you.
True.
And like you and me, we have experience. So when we start thinking about our purpose, we have all that experience behind us to help us to figure it out. But if you like, let's say you're in college and I ask you what's your why, most of the time you get lost. You're
True.
not sure. Oh, okay, maybe
True.
because you don't have enough life experience to put it all together. Now, with that and my other points, typically when you look at personal mastery, what are the most common roadblocks that a person might face?
Oh. Um, Number one, probably for me, they shut down, then they don't like to explore, right? I think the number one is that you should be curious. Curiosity is that's actually part of my MTP, right? Massive drive. I want people to, aside from imagining, to really be curious on what he or she can be, explore, and then at the same time, if because if you're not curious, and if you're like, okay, I cannot do that, if you keep on telling, oh, I cannot do that, and then that's it. No matter what you do, at the moment you say I can't, and then that's your reality. When my son tells me, mommy, it's hard for me, I think I cannot do that. Don't say that. Okay. Never say that you cannot do that. You could always try. It's difficult at first. It's difficult. Then you put yourself out there on that edge, and then just try. Then if it doesn't work, then it's okay. Go to another one, then explore. So curiosity is important. So if you're not curious and you're very cynical, that's a roadblock, right? And then
Okay.
probably number two, you have to love yourself.
Oh,
So if you're
yes.
not loving yourself, that's a roadblock because you will confine yourself. Okay, like to okay, you'll just say, okay, I'm here. I'm helpless. He's doing that to me. I'm blaming the other person. So okay, this is where I am. Then you become a prisoner of circumstances, right?
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, then you have to love yourself. Loving yourself is really uh giving yourself space, reading yourself of all those toxicities,
Right.
and you kn- I was just reminded because my son, sorry, I'm sorry, because every
Go
time I
ahead,
talk and
please.
then something came up, and because I remember, my son, um, he has he's in how do you say this? He's differently abled, so he's in special
Okay.
education, and he's actually attending a therapy, right? So he has this social skills therapy.
Right.
And then I asked him, so what did you learn today? Then he said, okay, what are the different qualities of a toxic friend? It's like, really? So what are those qualities? And he mentioned those 8 qualities. And then he said, I realized I have this friend. I will not mention. I have this friend, but but he has these 4 qualities. So he is no longer my friend. And then I was like, okay. I wanted to really guide him, although that's not nice, anak. But then for him, I think it's really the truth, right? So if you have these toxic friends keeping you down, then you just have
Mhm.
to really put boundaries and say, no, stop. I don't want that toxicity within me so I can be myself. And that is actually loving yourself. So cutting down those toxicities, regardless if it is a friend or an environment or
Uh-huh.
someone or in a relationship, yeah, you have the choice. At the end of the day, you always have the choice. Coming to the 7 habits, habit number 1, being proactive is not just you preparing for what will ever happen, but you having the choice, right? And saying, okay, this is for me. This is what I can
You
do.
know, I like it how you started uh, loving yourself, and the example you used really expounds on this because I read a book way back in high school. It's called The Art of Loving by Eric Fromm.
Mm.
And there's a very powerful line there that said the ability to be alone is a prerequisite to know how to love. And I said, very true. Okay, so
Oh,
because for example, even with your partner, it's always a choice. It's not that I can't live without you. No, I choose to be with you.
yes,
Okay,
that's true.
so very, very true. And a very fine point. And what your son was experiencing, I think to a certain degree, we all have toxic friends, but they're still our friends. We know
Yes,
when to tell them to stop, but they're still our
yes,
friends. Okay, we
yes.
just, you know,
Yeah.
you're not my friend anymore. No, I don't say that. Okay,
But for kids, they could somehow do that. But when you get older, of course, you cannot. Okay, you're no longer my friend.
which, which, which I find amazing because when you talk about toxicity, toxicity seems to be all over us. I mean, you just turn on social media; it's all toxic.
Yes.
Okay, news by definition is what's not normal. So it's usually bad stuff, not good stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, if I'm a good father and I come home, hug my kids, play with my kids, that's what it should be. So what's the news? The father who's not that. so so it doesn't really help. But one thing that I'd like to look a little further into is when you look at our values, and I see this a lot. Sometimes we confuse a value with a personality.
Mm, yes.
Okay, we in its extreme state
Yeah.
for Pinoys, it
Yes.
would be like utang ng loob. Okay, even though my boss might be a criminal, oh, you know what I mean? Because he's my boss, I'm looking more at the personality, not at the values.
Yes.
And what is your take on that? Because sometimes I feel I see a lot of people. Uh, how do you say, the values are not clear because they're following a personality, not a value.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. And that's that's a challenge now with social media. You have lots of personalities, and then even my mom, she follows some personalities that I don't like, but she's my mom, so what can I do? But okay, in seven habits, this is seven habits. This is how we actually differentiate, right? The personality as against values or character, right? Let's call it character. When we say personality, this is like how you carry yourself, how you dress yourself, how you fix your face, your hair, how you speak, right? So those are all personality. And when you say values, this is something within, and it's actually connected with the character. So when you say values, this is like something that is within. This is something that you cannot see. So these are probably integrity, honesty, so all of those things, right? So we compare it like in an iceberg. The one that you see are actually those that on top of the iceberg,
Mhm.
and that's personality, and that's okay, right? Everyone has their own personality, but then as a person you don't just get stuck there, you have to go inside, right? Because um inside is what you see, the a whole thing that you cannot see, which is the character or the values.
Mhm.
And this is like what you're seeing is as you mentioned, the integrity or the honesty and kindness, right? And what other values that a person can have in order to be be someone who can contribute to the society. When we always ask in Seven Habits, we always ask people, okay, so are you here on earth to make others suffer, right? So if that is your purpose, then maybe you have to think it over again. Because if your purpose is to make others suffer, then that would mean also somebody is making you suffer, right?
Right.
And then it's an exchange, and in that kind of relationship you end up like both of you as a loser, right?
Right.
But then if you're really deep within, right, deep within, your purpose is like, okay, just like to connect. When I became an executive assistant to the vice president or to the president, my in my thought, it was like, okay, I will make her life or his life easier. And that I felt was my purpose, making her life easier. So everything I do, I make sure that everything is done and it will be very easy for her to do her job because I'm doing my job, right? But then that's purpose. And that's from values because I value her, I value my work. And then, because when you say values, this is something that is important to you, right? So it can be a value that is important, like it's internal, like a character. And then it can be external, like work, right? So those are the things that I value. And then she notices me, and then that's it, right? So now we could see, you could have this personality, then you could also have these values, but then we have to go inside because values are your roots. Without it you will easily fall like in a tree, right? So if you
Right.
have like if you don't have a good foundation, if you have weak roots, weak values, then you'll definitely fall if there are circumstances that are very difficult. Now, let's say there's a storm, there's a tree. If your roots are really weak, then you fall. And this is like, a comparison with a person with personality and values. You could all have the
Right.
personality that you have, but then if your values are not deeply rooted, then you could easily fall.
Yeah, you see that a lot in politics, but I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
I know.
But
That's
you
why
mentioned two very
I
interesting. You mentioned two very interesting things because I've been approached more than once by learning and development groups, and they wanted to talk about the personal plans of the leaders and things like that. And I said, and I think this is also part in the 7 habits. I'm not sure. Actually, it is. And I said, oftentimes we confuse an achievement with an aspiration.
Mm.
I said, an achievement is I want to be a CEO, I want to be a billionaire, and all of that. But an aspiration is who you want to be as a person. And I said, sometimes we're so focused on our achievement that
Mm.
our aspiration goes somewhere else.
Yes.
Because we're confusing the two. We think that if I
True.
become the CEO, that means I'll also become a good person, if you want to say. But we're not making the distinction.
True.
Okay. And I think it's the seventh habit of starting with the end in mind. What
Yes.
number is that? I
Two.
forgot which one it is.
Habit
Number
number
two.
two,
Yes.
yes. Begin with the end
Right.
in mind, right? So that's technically end in
Right.
mind is your purpose.
Right.
I'll share with you because I also experience losing my purpose. I'm not always like, okay, I'm always on track. You get to experience somehow those some like sometimes you forgot or you lose your purpose, and, as I mentioned, I like exploring things, I like being busy, right? And then my boss realized that I loved it, so she gave me a lot of tasks. Then I was so
Uh-huh.
focused on my tasks, and then I came to a point that I was so very committed with my work, right? So I was achieving this, like, blah 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 blah. I'm making her life easy, right? And then okay, then I was
Mhm.
doing this, blah 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 blah. Come to a point that I was actually sleeping in the office, or I don't sleep anymore. It's like, oh, there, no, it's okay. I'm giving my 200% self, right? And then somewhere along the way, I lost myself. Then I had a car accident, and then my sister told me, sabi, and then it is in Filipino, right? I say it in Filipino because it has more impact if it is in
Impact.
Filipino.
Oh,
My sister told me, alam mo, Ate Connie, ang kapalit ng buhay mo, bulaklak at groceries. Isipin mo yan. Then I was like, then I got, oh my God, what am I doing? Then along the way, I got lost. But then I didn't immediately bounce back, right?
right.
I got burned out. My
Mhm.
performance came like tunneling down. And then I was like, oh, I just want to rest. I let
Right.
others lead. I want to rest. And then I became so negative at some point, but then it's good thing that I have good friends to actually ground me. Then they
Mhm.
told me like, Connie, you are starting to be negative. And these are my 7H friends, right? Co-facilitators. you're you're starting to become negative and you start blaming others. But then I realized, okay, if you keep on blaming others and you're not really accepting on, okay, this is a part of it. Oh, no, a whole part of it is my decision to become like that, right?
Right.
And then I said, okay, then I have to stop. I have to stop all this negativity, and I have to do something about it. That's when I started creating my learning agenda. I started with that. Started creating my learning agenda. What do I need to improve on? What do I need to focus on? Coming from that era of being burnt down, right, and losing your focus, and
You sound
then
like what was it? The Devil Wears Prada.
yeah,
You remember that movie
yeah, I know that movie.
where the
Which part?
executive assistant was
Ah,
killing
okay.
herself to satisfy the boss?
Yeah,
Sounds
true.
familiar. But this was before that, I'm sure. You know, in fact, maybe it requires those events for us to get our life, to shake us up a little bit.
I think so. I
Okay.
think so. Yeah, that's true. I agree with you because sometimes you have to face those hurdles. Then
Mhm.
you come to realize, okay, I'm able to do this and pass that hurdle. Okay, so what's next? And then you learn more.
Right.
What is important is that as soon as you face that hurdle, it's okay to stay there for the short time or period of time. But then what is
Mhm.
important is that you move on.
Right. In fact, when you mentioned about curiosity, curiosity is actually the foundation for the growth mindset. Because
Mhm.
if you lose your curiosity, you don't want to learn anymore. You just stop. I've had enough. Uh,
True, true.
but it's
Yeah,
actually that's one of the bigger challenges we're having today because of everything that's going on. I'm talking about the pandemic, the
yeah,
post-pandemic rush of the business coming back. Then we
yes,
have Chat GPT and AI coming around the corner. It seems
yes,
to everything seems to be changing very very quickly.
yes,
And if we get stuck in the mold of thinking in the past, okay, and it's very easy. When I say it's very easy, if you look at the situation where companies are demanding people to come back to work,
mm,
okay, that's the past.
true.
It
That's
is.
true.
Okay, and the company's still thinking like that. So I think these guys have to really push it a little bit and think a little better. And Connie, I've had a wonderful, wonderful time with you. I'm sure you have a
Me
lot
too.
more to share. Is there any event, maybe, or some talk that you might be giving soon that you want to invite some of our viewers to?
Okay, so because I work with the company, most of my trainings are done inside the company.
Mm, right.
Public, none. But then, if anybody's interested, I could give out. If I have free time, then I could do that.
Mm,
Currently, I'm doing a program for our company. It's called Leaders in Safety,
mhm,
and we called it a 5 star. So I'm conducting those trainings, but within our company, and I'm also working on a sideline with a friend. We're coming up with hopefully we're coming up with a leadership or executive program,
mhm.
and yeah, basically that's it. Yeah,
Where can where can we reach
but
you?
no public training as of now.
Where can we
Okay,
reach you?
the same way you have reached me through LinkedIn. I'm in LinkedIn, and then I also have a Facebook account. But then, you know, um, probably some of the people I know will have difficulty finding me because they cannot find me as Connie Germono. I think I changed it to
Mhm.
Maricon. I don't know why I changed it to Maricon because my full name is Maria Concepcion, but I wanted it to, I don't know why, but I wanted to change it to Maricon. Yeah, in
Mhm.
Facebook it's Maricon, and LinkedIn it's Connie Hermono. Via email as well. Can I share it? Should I share the email?
Uh, we'll take care of that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. When we do publish the video, we'll,
All
we'll
right.
make sure it shows. All
All
right.
right, sure.
Okay. Now, to our audience, if you enjoyed this episode, please click on like, subscribe. It also helps us. And and as always, learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas.